them in the morning today. Just imagine, those children read the books yesterday, and when they were reading the book yesterday itself, they said, yes, the book is wonderful. And in the morning they said, ma'am, it's so amazing book, like the area that ma'am has touched upon. I am sure you're going to have a very happy interaction with her. And of course, maybe her talk is going to inspire a number of people to maybe write a lot of books for you as well, or for the author. You know, all of us carry stories, but we might not be writing it, right? So think if you want to become an author. Maybe this session will inspire you. So thank you. I'm handing it over to my comparators of the day. For our principal, sir. So this is a question for all of you. Which is the longest ever storybook written in the world? Does anybody know the name? Yeah? Nobody knows that? Actually, you know, because this is so much ours and we take it so much for granted, Mahabharata is one of the longest ever stories. People say if you read Mahabharata and the stories over there, you've read all stories of the world. So there is, you know, when we are talking about stories, action, drama, anything that you name, and of course the famous theories of karma, and plus our, what should I say, the values that we live by, all of them into that book. So it is that kind of a book. How many of you read anything out of those books? If we are talking about Indic awakening, if we are talking about awakening of the people, you know, because remember, we are living in a metropolitan city, and rather we are living in the capital of India, right? Or Bharat nowadays, as people are calling it, right? So if we are living in capital of India, sitting in rarefied AC halls, so do we think that we need to read those books, or is it Sidney Sheldon or maybe Dan Brown, and those authors are the only authors that we should read? Anyone? Very nice. Anyone who's read a story from either your oldest epics from Ramayana or Mahabharata? Anyone? One, two, just look at the multitude of the hall over here. So this is what we need to reconnect. Please connect back with your roots. And now I just take my day off, right? Over to the content.
Masterful writers are like music composers, orchestrating the symphony of opposites. They deftly sculpt intricate characters, navigate contrasting themes, and blend diverse tones seamlessly. The capacity to hold conflicting ideas within a narrative is a testament to their mental agility, enabling writers not only to craft compelling stories, but also to unveil an authentic and resonant portrait of the intricate mosaic of human existence. Greetings to one and all present here. Today I, Alia Mehta, along with my friend Shabi Fatima, the comparators of the day, welcome you all to this remarkable gathering and of enlightened minds, inquiring spirits, and catchers of the dreams. The Authors Session 2023.
We have amongst us the chief guest and accomplished author, Ms. Aashisha Chakraborty. Guest of the day, Mr. Vikash Bhardwaj, who is the Assistant Vice President of Times of India. Master of Ceremony, Ms. Aashisha Gupta. The coordinators, Ms. Deepika Pandey and Ms. Reena Tandon. Erudite Principal, Mr. Sanjay Yadav. Respected Vice Principal, Mr. Puneet Duggal. Head Secondary Stage, Dr. Ekta Kiradra. HM Preparatory Stage, Ms. Kavita Shah. HM Foundation Stage, Ms. Pooja Chandalya. Ever-loving teachers and students from Alcon International School and Alcon Public School. Our esteemed chief guest, Ms. Aashisha Chakraborty, is a PM Yuva author and Write India winner whose debut novel, Miss Adventures of a Sales Girl, is a bestseller. And her latest book is a work of historical fiction with National Book Trust, titled The 13-Year-Old Queen and Her Inherited Destiny, launched at the World Book Fair by Nobel laureate Annie Ernaux, and exhibited at book fairs in Seoul, London, and Abu Dhabi. She has written articles for various esteemed newspapers such as The Hindu, The Times of India, and so on.
May I now request our principal, Mr. Sanjay Yadav, to kindly present an auspicious planter as a symbol of appreciation to our chief guest, Ms. Aashisha Chakraborty.
I request Principal Sir to kindly felicitate the guest of honor, Mr. Vikas Bhardwaj, with the planter as a token of our gratitude.
Authors are the architects of worlds, conjuring realms of imagination with a stroke of a pen. Through their words, they breathe life into characters, instill meaning into plots, and open portals to unexplored dimensions. Each page turned is a journey embarked, a dialogue with the author's mind. Now, may we request Ms. Aashisha Chakraborty to please come on the stage and address the gathering.
Good morning to all of you. I am Aashisha Gupta, your host for this interesting book reading session, which is part of Author Awards, an initiative brought to you by JK Paper and Times of India. Author Awards is a platform to encourage women authors to express their creativity and fondness for writing. It is a celebration of the art of storytelling by women writers. This initiative wishes to acknowledge exemplary pieces of writing by women authors to inspire and motivate more women to take up writing, pen that story, and feel proud of their accomplishments. On 29th October this year, we launched Season 5 of the Author Awards. Over the last 4+ years, we have seen more than 5,500 entries in various categories from across the country, and more than 70 eminent personalities have gotten associated with the awards journey. As a part of the initiative to celebrate the writing of women authors, we have executed many immersive, multi-city and virtual book reading sessions, and today we bring you your author, Aashisha Chakraborty.
Let's have a huge round of applause once again. Thank you. Since our wonderful host from Alcon International School have already introduced Aashisha and make my work a bit simpler, we will just dive into this session. Alright, a very warm welcome to you, Aashisha.
Thank you so much.
We are glad that you have joined us today. So to begin with, I believe you awarded the PM Yuva Award and the Write India both in the same year, and that too for the first book you ever wrote. Is that true?
I would disagree with a little part of what you said, because the journey begins a long time before. And even though the award comes later, even the publication comes later, I remember writing right from when I was in school. Despite doing engineering and then going on to do an MBA, I used to be the editor of my college magazine. Even back in my B school, which was IFT Delhi, I was the media committee person. So I think the writing thing has to continue and be consistent. But yes, all this happened and seems to happen in one little year, one entire year. 2022 seems to be the culmination of everything. But yes, it takes a long time to get to that place. So yeah, I mean, technically you're right.
Alright, so how do you feel recognized for your work, especially since it was your first book?
So the first book is a very special project, because as a writer, there's a lot of self-doubt in you, whether the readers would accept your work, whether what you put out is good enough or will connect with the masses. And that is what also plagued me when I started writing Misadventures of a Sales Girl. As a person, I mean, why did I write Misadventures? Because, I mean, I was a sales manager once, and I realized that that was a story which definitely needed to be told. You know, as a woman who will go to the ground and do a job which has been, not very suited to the female population. I mean, you won't say that, yeah, I'm doing sales, I'm Aashisha, I'm doing sales. I would rather say that, yes, I'm working in a bank, or I'm doing something which requires me to come to office. I will not do something which requires me to roam from place to place, go to distributors, talk to people, get deals closed. That is that has historically been a very manly thing to do. But to break that barrier, I never thought I would be one breaking barriers. I mean, I never saw myself as, I don't break barriers. I write things, I have fun, I enjoy, but will I be able to, actually make a difference? And then I realized that when I was writing this book, it is in each one of us to make that little difference in our lives, and that is that little difference which takes you very far. So Misadventures of a Sales Girl is primarily my sales experiences, of course spiced up with the fiction elements which make it fiction. But primarily it's about this girl who has, been sent to a different place, sent to Chennai where she doesn't know the language. I don't know if that's your next question, but I'm just answering it. So she does not know Tamil, she does not know how to sell, and she has a certain expectation because when we're in school and college, we have a lot of bookish knowledge. We have a lot of things that we've studied, our physics and our chem and English and everything, and we're like, yeah, this is what will help us in the world, right? But when you go out into the world, you're like, this was just 20% or maybe just 10%. You need a hell of a lot more. I mean, you need the wherewithal and the worldly knowledge to make your way through all these difficulties, to make your way through what promises to be a very challenging space for anyone. I mean, adulting is hard. So this is a coming of age novel, especially in the backdrop of a very male-dominated profession, which is now gradually, becoming more diverse.
Yes, indeed. And moving on to the next book, we are here talking about the 13-year-old queen and her inherited destiny. This book is so different from your earlier book that you have wrote, which is Misadventures of a Sales Girl, and which, for the knowledge of audience here today, was loosely based on your life as a working professional. So would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, I mean, I was just telling Rima a while back that my first book and my second book are like 2-3 months apart. My first book came in 2022 September, and my second book was launched this year in Feb 23. So I did not choose what I would write about, but this was curious because the Ministry of Education under the PMO came out with this scheme called the PM Yuva scheme, where they were looking for young, versatile authors who would be writing about freedom fighters who we've not heard before, not heard commonly. Like, we all know the big ones. I can see the pictures there, Nehru, Gandhi, Patel, Indira Gandhi, and all these people who are out there. We know their names, easy to remember, Azad and all. Do we know this woman? Have you ever heard? I mean, just a random question. Have you ever heard of Rani Gaidenliu? I mean, I have never heard of her, so I mean, I'm not faulting you. Have you ever heard of Matangini Hazra? Have you ever heard of Kutti Ali from the south? So there are multiple such people who have never made it to the pages, and every movement, it's not just the Indian freedom movement, any big movement has a lot of wheels, has a lot of parts, and each and every part of that movement make it whole, make it happen. So the aim of this scheme was actually to bring out more stories, and what better way than mobilize the young to do it. So that kind of got me going. And even though I have a day job and it is difficult to find time, I was like, since this is under a deadline, this is right up my alley. I work best under deadlines. So the 13-year-old queen struck my fancy when I realized that she was not even a teenager when she had decided to give up everything. She decided that I would be fighting for the country, period. There would be, there were no questions. She did not think that maybe I was supposed to get married. We have many alpha female ideas today. Today in the 21st century, we do have them. In the 1900s, we did not have them. We did not even have the media, the newspaper, Facebook, Insta, social media telling us, that this is what is being a powerful woman. But this woman did not need that. Nobody told her that you have to be that. I mean, nobody can tell you when you're 12 or 11 that, you have to be strong and you have to be your own person. She knew that on her own, and that's what attracted me to this. And that's when I'm like, yes, I don't care about the genres. I'm probably going to dive into historical fiction and write about her. So that's how this book was born.
Oh, well, indeed. Isn't it interesting? Yes? Yes? The people who are sitting above. Yes? Can I hear a response? Yes, it is an interesting fact. Because both of the books are way apart. The stories are way apart. The genre is way apart. Alright, moving on, may I request you to tell us a bit more about this book before moving on to the next question?
So the 13-year-old queen is set in the tri-junction of Manipur, Nagaland and Assam. And there is this little spot, that village is Longkao, where actually a reporter friend of mine is posted right now, and he is also uncovering some stories there. So this woman was born there to a chief, and there are multiple Naga tribes living there, and you will not be able to remember the names. There are multiple, but I will just name 3 tribes which were major ones, and she worked to unify those. So it was Zim, Liangmai and Rongmai. She started with the freedom movement, and her inspiration was her older brother, her older cousin brother, who was actually called Haipur Jadonam. I have changed the names in the book, of course. In the book you will find his name to be Dikanam, and Gaiden Liu is Tijin Liu in the book. So the book is basically talking about, it's set about 50 years, it's set around 50 years, 1900s to of course 1947. That's when India, gained independence. And this talks about how she fell into the movement, and there's a little bit of mystery, and that's where the fantasy element comes in. The thing about the Northeast is that it's quite unexplored till date, and we do not still have any written accounts. This is a story which verbally came down. I was happy to connect with a mentor who's a professor at one of the DU colleges. NBT, that's the National Book Trust, the publisher of this book, connected me to her. She was my mentor for the book, and she got me those private letters, some pictures, and unpublished, writings, diary snippets. That's where I got this information from. A lot of it might seem fantastical, that's why I'm mentioning that it's fiction. And when I read some excerpts, you'll understand what I'm saying. A lot of it seems fantastical, but when you go to the Northeast, they will tell you that they actually believe that there's a cave up there. I mean, there is a cave up there, but they will believe that there is a Messiah, and some kind of forces have helped them. So all these, the book has all these elements along with the real elements. So that's how I tried to sort of get them together into how the northeastern part of India, that tribe basically fought for their independence.
Alright, so was it difficult to do this kind of crossover? I mean, from a sort of mix of fiction, non-fiction to historical fiction?
I mean, I wouldn't say a lot. I think the hardest part was the research, because in this one, it's a first-hand account primarily. So I didn't know, I didn't have to do much research. I'm working in the same field. I know pretty much ins and outs of everything. But the second one is a completely different genre. Not just a genre, but it required me, I think out of the 6 months that we were given to write this book, I spent 4 months on the research. The last 2 months were a rush of hurried writing. So 4 months went into painstaking research. So that was the hardest part, I must say.
Alright, that sounds really great, and it seems really hard to actually write a book in a very short span of time, though where you have got some deadlines and you have to manage everything and you have to culminate everything in just a span of good 2 months. So kudos to you. Let's have a huge round of applause on this part, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So wow, amazingly, I believe that a person's interest has a lot to do with person's learning. So it's a twofold question. First, have you always been interested in writing? And secondly, when did you realize that this is your calling, since it seems you have been writing from quite a young age?
I think a part of us always is interested in some kind of creative pursuit or the other. So, I'm sure each one of you might either unwind through music or dance or writing or reading or even sports. Yes, writing came to me, of course, at a very young age, as it does to many writers. Reading, I think, was the root of everything. Because unless you know what's out there, you wouldn't know what you like, and you wouldn't know what you would like to really read. So the kind of book I write, I'm hoping that that's the kind of book I would also like to read. So, of course, in school, I mostly read. Like I read widely, I read variedly, fiction, non-fiction, I read anything, poster, billboards. You give me anything, I'll read up. It's like it's food for me. In college, I actually started blogging. That's when I started the blogging process. Putting up one-pager articles, poems, the spoken word poetry. The airplane poetry movement was pretty rife when I was in college. And then, of course, as I said, I was the editor of my college magazine. I, spearheaded the whole thing. Then back in IFT, I was also the TEDx curator. So yeah, the whole thing kind of culminated in this, but it was a long journey and I kind of went step by step. So right from a poem to short stories, and that's where Write India came in, because Write India had provided us a platform for, showcasing our ideas. So, in a span of, I remember Vinita telling us that, in 11 months, if you write one story each month, even if none of them get selected, you will have an anthology. An anthology is a collection of stories. So that's good, I mean, that's a good writing exercise. And I firmly believe that got me at least into the discipline of writing amidst this hectic schedule, because I knew I had to submit. The thing about submission is that you end up doing something, you end up writing something. So that was good, and I'm always indebted to TOI and Write India for, at least getting me in that writing shape, which sometimes you have ideas, you know what to do, but you're not sure how to do it. And crowdsourced competitions like that actually help you. So, post that, I think, so your question was whether you were always into writing. Yes, I was always into writing, and the fillip that I needed was these events were the fillips that I needed to actually start the process.
Alright, thank you so much. Alright, also I'm very curious to know how you choose this particular topic which revolves around the Nagas people's struggle against the British Raj, with the glimpses of their all-over struggle.
So, the Northeast people do wonder about, the mysticism associated with the Northeast. A lot of us don't know that there's a lot of diversity in the Northeast, even within the tribes. And very few of us actually have thought about reading them. So we have some folk tales, I think, Northeastern folk tales. But I wanted a written account of something, an easily available account of something which people could read. Like I could pick up a Ruskin Bond and find out about what Missouri, is, or I could pick up a book and find out about these leaders easily. For leaders like Rani Gaidilio, for readers like, there are multiple, I'm sure, there are multiple leaders in the Northeast. We do not have any written accounts or any easily accessible things which would also be palatable to this young audience. This is an age of 30-second reels. We can't hold people's attention for that long. And the words in there, the names in there, Maswang, Fi, Dikanang, all of those words are I remember one of the readers texted me a few days ago and they said that, I loved your book. What I found hard was the names. I kept looking back and forth. What do I do? Who was this? Who was this? So I had provided a glossary, but they, I think, kept wanting to go back with the glossary, and I faced the same thing. So to be aware and to accept the diversity, and still enjoy the story is something that I wanted to do. And I felt it was a brave thing to do because, it's easier for you to write about maybe not a well-known, but an easy character which people would quickly take up. But I was like, I don't worry about people taking it up, but I do worry about the story not being out in the open. So I wanted the story to be out and accessible so that people might have a little difficulty, but then it's 80%. I've worked to reduce that difficulty by 80% to know the story.
Wow, sounds very interesting. And now I would like to request to please read an excerpt from your book.
Sure. So as I said, pardon my pronunciations, although I did check the pronunciation before writing the book, but I might go wrong, so pardon me. So this is one scene from one of the beginnings, but let me just take another one. So there is this there were these movements, two unfair practices that used to happen during the British Raj. They were called Pothang Senkai and Pothang Bekaji. I'm going to talk about that. Just give me a bit. So this is chapter 22. Pothang Bekaji was a horrendous evil wherein the Indian natives carried the luggage and goods of the officials without any payment. A similarly appalling rule of Pothang Senkai made it obligatory for Indians to feed the British with the best available edibles by common willet subscription, irrespective of famines, droughts, or any such inability to do the same. If such demand was not given, severe punishment, mostly whipping, was inflicted on them. There were further humiliations imposed on Indians where any headwear, be it a hat, cap, or even an opened umbrella, had to be put down for fear and respect of the British. It was the sheer inequality and discrimination that infuriated Dijin Liu no end. What gave them the right to impose such outrageous rules? Dijin Liu's eyes could have been made of steel, the kind of look she gave the Lambu, the person who collected the house tax of 3 rupees every month. She had visited almost all the villages in Kachar, treating the sick, praying for the dead, and interpreting dreams. She had followed right in Deekanang's footsteps, who once took a fee of 4 annas for praying for the dead, a bottle of zoo for interpreting a dream, and 3 annas for treating the sick. He then used the funds for the upkeep of the movement. It was Dijin Liu who went from group to group, presiding over the activities and improving the areas she felt needed some amelioration. She would talk to villagers and volunteers who were raring to do anything to make things happen. With time, Dijin Liu had begun to take over the major operations as Deekanang started leaning more and more on her, not just for her expertise, but also due to her apparent ease and comfort with people. Although he had noticed a certain distance between Lani Long and her, he assumed he was probably miffed that he hadn't been selected as the second in command as he would have wished. For Deekanang, all that was inconsequential. Now, for Dijin Liu, the Lambu was inconsequential. She had met too many people trying to make proposals to her, expecting that she would yield, and receiving a rude shock when she didn't. "You would be interested to meet our superior," the Lambu replied, unsuccessful in his attempts to court the 13-year-old Dijin Liu. "Please talk to him." Dijin Liu was ready to talk to the Queen of England if need be, but she wouldn't give a single penny to the Lambu. She wore a black and red shawl over a striped red skirt, her hair open as if in defiance to everything around her. "Sure, please inform your superior." He went over to the side, exasperated at the stubborn girl. "She isn't listening to me, sir," the Lambu complained. "She insists on talking to a superior. She says no one will pay from Lungkao. Apparently her father is the chief of this village." A man in a khaki-colored hat and a well-ironed shirt and pants turned with a frown on his face. "Is this the same girl who accompanies that rebel everywhere?" "She's supposed to be her cousin sister," Malcolm confided to Martin, the mastermind behind the decisions that had divided the northeastern region. Interesting," Martin mused. "Must see who she is." He made his way to where Dijin Liu was standing resolutely under the scorching sun with her arms crossed as if competing with the sun for vehemence and intensity. "Who are you?" he asked, towering over her. "I want to ask you the same question." "I'm Martin." "Martin who?" "I head the Timing Long Division of Manipur." "Okay. May I now have your introduction?" "I am Dijin Liu. I head the house tax and the Pothang Bekari rebellion." "Do you realize this revolt could put you in jail? It is illegal to not pay taxes and avoid labor." "Do you realize this treatment of people could put you at risk of revolt? It is immoral to not pay people for their labor." For a moment, he was thrown and enraged at the same time. The girl was not just feisty, but had a way with words. He did not know whether to admire her or teach her a lesson. "Don't act smart with me, do you understand? I can imprison you right now," he said in a low, dangerous voice. "You can surely try." she said in a challenging tone. For a moment that looked at each other, eyes locked, waiting for the other's action. I promise, one day I will bring you to your knees. He gritted his teeth. You can keep dreaming of that, Dijonliu replied calmly. But I'm certain, one day very soon, you will be bound to flee this country and we will be free. That is a Naga's promise. Martin stormed away without a backward glance. Get the car ready. We're going to the headquarters. I need a word with Sherman. Malcolm first looked at his boss and then at Dijonliu, standing under a tree now far away. She didn't seem to have got out any snakes this time. Why was Martin so angry? Sir, is everything all right? He asked tentatively. A surly, unmarried girl, that's what she is. She needs to be controlled. That she is, Jeremy muttered under his breath. She's fiery enough to fire cannons. So that's one little episode of how she sort of,
Wow, it seems very empowering. Thank you, everyone. Well, as you are talking about Dijonliu, how does this young girl develop so much courage to fight and heal at the same time? She has some shamanic powers or what?
That's pretty interesting. As I said, there's a lot of fantasy surrounding this book, the lore actually. When you go there, the locals will tell you that yes, she's still over us, watching over us. When I started researching on it, frankly, I was a little, I'm not very cool with supernatural things, paranormal things. I don't believe in that. So I'm like, I'm not going to write something like that. But to be true to the region, you will have to accept what they believe, and that's why it is a fantasy fiction. So the story is about, of course, it's about rebellion against the unfair British practices, but how they do it, and there's a little bit of it, if once we do the next reading, I'll tell you, I'll do a little bit of, I've improved that there's this python god which they believe to have possessed her or something like that. So it's a little bit of, I don't know how many of you have read The Poppy Wars. It's by R.F. Kuang and it's a fantasy novel series based in China. It also talks about the olden Chinese emperors and the fighters actually going to a state where they can harness those powers. So again, all fantasy. But my idea was to land the freedom bit, the empowering bit with the fantasy elements. So yeah, she's supposed to have shamanic powers. I do not know. She's supposed to have healing powers. But then, often, if you put your logic to it, often these healing powers are due to the herbs. There are a lot of herbs, and if you have knowledge of them, if you give the right kind of herb, the fever will come down, or some things, the skin ailments will be removed. So I think that's probably what this was. But I kind of took it on a fantasy level.
Alright, so as you've already said that she's the main character and this 13-year-old character is playing the central role, and then maybe you can just read an excerpt describing her, about her personality.
I think the personality bit is done. I will just take up 2 pages where...
You've already mentioned about that Python story related to her.
Yes.
You can just read that part.
Yeah, so the Python one I think could be a little interesting, although it's very sparingly written. This chapter is 20, Rebels of the Pothang Bekhari. The sun was at its height and the water glistened silver. Mirroring the color of the earth reflecting off the porter, his face was pockmarked with an unknown disease which probably went untreated in his childhood because his father had been too busy arranging for food for the family. His skin, at least, all that one could see of it, was the color of sand, brown, the humblest color in the firmament. He had always associated white, milky skin with that of the Goras. Somewhere within, he felt that they had an inborn right to lead the brown, skins like him. Maybe because of their birth and dark skin color, the alien language which he could not understand, and the clothing which he could not afford to buy. His ribs stood out like the ones on a carcass, barely managing to keep the skin together. His forehead had crawled unto itself, lines crisscrossing the pitted skin. He had accepted his fate, like the deer, accepting being killed by the tiger, because it was a law of nature. It was law that he served the Goras and did their bidding. Move, the chorus shouted. Move faster! A sharp pain moved through his body, making him hunch lower. He had been beaten before. It was a familiar pain, one that had been carried down from generations. This pain was an integral part of him. His body knew every joint, every muscle, every sinew that had ever been hit for not doing enough. He had come to believe that he deserved the pain, so he didn't flinch, even when the man asked him to stop and began to cane him for not driving fast enough. What a blithering idiot, Malcolm swore. Did you have to find this donkey for carrying us? An actual donkey might have done a better job. What a sight. Jeremy contorted his face and looked away, as if it took an enormous effort to stare in his direction. You couldn't find anyone else, could you? Ray didn't say a word. His mind tussled between resistance to violence against a defenseless, hard-working man and the need to fit in. I will kill you and drop you over the cliff if you stop once more, Jeremy warned. The man pointed feebly ahead. Yes, yes, move ahead, another official repeated irritably. What is he, deranged? Down came a sharp rap on his head. The man reeled in utter pain. He started to make the second move when a hand gripped his and twisted it, eliciting a strangled cry from him. Look here, Ray pointed ahead. Right there stood a man they had come to recognize too well by now. Ah, the self-appointed hero is here. Malcolm chuckled derisively. You saved us the effort of locating you. Deekanam walked towards them as if he couldn't care less. Hand over the grains. Excuse me? Jeremy asked in mock disbelief. What did you say? I said hand over the grains, or did you go deaf the last time I clubbed you? Say one more word and I'll cut you into 100 pieces and make that girl with you eat it. Malcolm gritted his teeth, glancing indulgently by Deekanam's side. Are you talking about me? She stepped in front of him, then talked directly to me. Coward. Jeremy smirked. Looks like they have a feisty one here. Where did you find her? Say one word about my sister and you're dead, Deekanam spoke through gritted teeth. We won't need to speak. She can join you and this old goner in the cliff below. Or we recently started an exhibition of rebels on trees. You would know, wouldn't you? We found one guy from Camberon joining that spectacle. Camberon? Deekanam's throat went dry. He had heard of some youths being strung up on trees for revolting against the house tax, but he had no idea one of their own had been in it. Leave the grain, Deekanam said again. They had planned to ambush the sepoys while they collected grain from different villages. They had spread their forces to different parts of the hills to start a mass civil disobedience movement. I will give you a better proposal, Malcolm spoke in mock seriousness. You leave the girl with us and we will let you go. To their surprise, Deekanam grinned. Sure, I'll leave her here. Dijanliu, please get the grain while I take Apulao back to his village. Apulao is uncle. Yes, Achaibung. Achaibung means older brother. Deekanam had barely turned when Jeremy and the other officials had their necks pushed together and bound by a shimmering black python. Dijanliu moved her lips without any sounds emanating from her. Malcolm couldn't help but let out a piercing shriek as another snake crawled up his leg, like a little infant wanting to play. What sorcery is this? He screamed. Are you brother and sister wicked sorcerers? The gods know who's wicked and who isn't, Dijanliu calmly said. Leave the grain and dare you touch any living being of this village. Just remember me. I'll come for you. The officials were left to themselves as Deekanam and Dijanliu moved ahead with the grains and the human carrier. A few ways up the road, he told her, You need to heal him. I will deposit things up here. Sure. He suddenly looked up at her seriously. How did you summon the snakes? Dijanliu shrugged. I just felt like I had to. Can you also hear a voice inside your head? She thought for a moment before replying. No, not really. Deekanam wondered where the python was. He hadn't heard from it in days. So that's something to think about.
Wow, sounds quite interesting. I think I need to read this book now after meeting you, and it seems really, really impeccably written. So, okay, alright, moving onward. Any other character that you found in the book that you really like or is special to you? Can you just describe the personality?
I think I loved another side character in the book. That's Maswangfi. He's the son of the seer, the fortune teller in the village, and he's someone who takes care of Dikanang when he's just growing up, when he loses his father to the fire, which is orchestrated by the British. And that's interesting because the role of friends, the role of supporters in a movement like that is huge. And I'm not going to give away the plot, but towards the end something really sad happens, and I think that's when you realize that you can take a side character and make the reader feel really bad when, say, like in Harry Potter, when they kill Sirius Black. I mean, Sirius Black is of course one of the most important ones, but the major character is Harry and those three, Ron and Dumbledore, but everybody, I cried when Sirius died. So I think that is something which I try to do with Maswangfi. So I hope you find it in the book.
Alright, so may I request you to please read few excerpts from the book related to that character?
We have read a couple of excerpts from here, so we'll probably read some from there once you come to it. I think I've done a lot of reading.
Alright, so what kind of research that went into writing this book, and how much is close to reality? As in, what really happened, or rather certain situations that happened as part of history have been put in the book?
So, when you write historical fiction, one of the most important things you must remember is that you can't mess with the timeline. Unless you're, of course, Quentin Tarantino, because then you can do revisionism. And so, see, as a person, I know that 1947, 15th August 1947, India got independence, so I can't mess with it. And I know Dijon Liu was born in 1913, I can't mess with it. She died in 1993. So what a historical fiction writer can't do is mess with the timelines and the actual events, but what we can do is the way the movement came about. I mean, we've never seen that. We know that these house taxes were collected. We know that people were unfairly imprisoned and arrested. But we don't know what effect it had on the family, on the people who actually went into the war, or how the war came about. And that's the essence of a writer, when they bring up these ideas clearly and help all these elements come together in a proper mesh where you can enjoy the narrative without losing the authenticity. So there's no detail that has gone amiss in the book, like factual details, but of course, as I mentioned, it's a fantasy fiction. It's historical fantasy fiction like Poppy Wars. So you will find some elements of fantasy which come from the folklore and oral legends, and that's how it has been taken up.
Alright, so I've just received a request from the audience itself that can you just read a few more excerpts from Misadventures of Sales Girls, because they really want to hear from your own voice. Yes?
That's amazing. So I will give a little bit of idea. I've already said that Misadventures of a Sales Girl is based on, it's a coming-of-age novel where this girl tries to find her footing in a corporate world, Although I have not set up which page, but I'm thinking, because at this stage of your life, I believe you guys are all 9thers and 11thers, if I'm not wrong. Yeah? So at this stage of your life, there's a lot of time when, there are a lot of instances when we snap at our parents and when we're like, just don't bug me so much, don't let me study. So a lot of scenes in the book deal with this girl. So the protagonist of this book is Aashisha Chakraborty, and she is sent to Chennai to pursue her sales internship in Telesign. Telesign is basically another name that I've kept for Airtel, where I work. I mean, my first book is a no-brainer. So anyway, but the book is entertaining, even if I'm saying so myself. So what I want to talk about is how the girl feels when she has spoken to her parents. I mean, it's all about sales, but I think that is more relatable to you guys. But you have to give me 5 seconds or 30 seconds because I have to figure out the right thing. So the second important character is Ramanujan Reddy. That's Ram, that's her boss, that's her RM. Alright. Okay, so this is the page, this is the series, this is the time which I would like to, this is the chapter which I would like to read, The Call. Okay, I'll give a bit of context. The context is that this girl is not able to get her mid-review done, and opposed to what people do at work in the office, she used to go from place to place, from retailer to retailer, shop to shop, selling SIM cards. And she's kind of, I mean, it's Chennai, it's May, it's April, May, June, so it's the maximum blistering heat, okay? The call, day 53. Baba's questions went like this. How did it go? How did what go, she wondered, her upper lip tightening while she switched on the AC. Why did Baba always start with such rootless questions? Questions which had no context, no backdrop, they just appeared out of nowhere, and he expected her to know what he wanted to hear about. But Ina was hot-tempered. Ina is short for Inakshi. Thoroughly disgruntled, frustrated, and evil-mannered to boot. So she simply asked, what? I mean, how was your day? Okay, she gave the monosyllabic answers she was famous for. How was work? It was fine. She just didn't feel like talking to Baba. Not after spending the entire day in the sun. Everything inside her was conspiring to be rude to him. What did your boss say? Somehow this question made her angrier. He didn't say anything. What is there to say, for God's sake? And tell me clearly what you want to know. You want to know about work? It was just a normal day. I went and worked and came back. That's that. What's there to ask about? She knew she would regret it the moment her outburst was over, sorely. I was just hoping that you're not worried, especially about what Tukipishi has been telling you. Just call a little more, okay? Calls waste time, Baba. She had seen her friends calling up their parents, talking to them for hours and hours, telling them about their day, their problems, their friends. Ina, on the other hand, shared nothing with hers. She was sure that they didn't know anything more than what she cared to tell them, and she didn't care much, especially because they hadn't cared enough to tell her anything about themselves. So that's the context to the beginning of the story, which I'm not going to tell you, of course. Baba, at one point in his life, when she was in school, used to get really angry. She used to be afraid of him. But now he didn't say a thing. He would just listen silently and reframe his question if he didn't get a reply. He was doing the same now. Do you have work tomorrow? Yes. That was an easier question. Objective. Less tormenting. Okay, take care. Okay, bye. That was all the conversation she had with him. And she knew she was being cruel. That she was punishing him. He really wanted to know how his daughter was doing. Had she managed to enter the corporate world? Was she surviving? Was she okay? How were they treating her? But Ina was furiously reserved. She kept her feelings to herself. It was a few hours later that she received a call from Ma. Had something to eat? Yes. Even though they had their differences and fought more than warring countries, Ma always knew what to ask her and how to put her at ease. She asked her things Ina knew the answers to. Things that didn't make her construct walls around herself. You know, I went to Seema Auntie's house today. She had this puja that she holds every year. The house has been refurbished and it's so amazing that upholstery, beautiful. I told your Baba that we'll get our sofa covers changed this coming Diwali. Ma knew that Ina didn't like to talk much, so she became a talker for her daughter's sake. Ma knew her too well. And that is why conversations with her were still bearable. Now her daughter is fine, but that a problem with intestines persists. You see, proper food is very important. Have you been eating fruits? Yes, Ma. Which ones? Mostly apples. What about mangoes? Don't like them. They give me spots on my forehead. A little mango won't hurt. Also buy cucumbers if you can. Chinese would be better. They don't need to be peeled. And are you still making food? Pretty much, yes. Shona, isn't there someone who can cook for you? Tell them you'll give them extra money. You just find a cook or a lunch service or something. It's fine. I don't have to cook much. I usually eat outside. And it's only for dinner. Breakfast? I eat cereal and yogurt. Or curd, bread, jam, whatever. Poor baby, you take care. Listen, I want to ask you something. You're not very busy, are you? Can I talk for some time? A fresh wave of guilt passed over her. What on earth was she turning into? Her mother was taking permission from her to talk? No, Ma, I'm free right now. We can talk. It's not a big deal. Just that you never call. Obviously, I understand that you're busy. Internships are very hectic. I do know that. But I wish you could message us on WhatsApp, on the family group if nothing else. Even a good morning would do. She noted with a pang of guilt how Ma punctually sent her a morning greeting at 5:30 a.m. every day without fail, and how she never replied. She bugged Ram for all kinds of things, kept checking WhatsApp restlessly for his responses, but couldn't find the time to reply to her mother. What kind of monster was she becoming? You're returning next week, right? Yes, Ma. Do tell us the flight timings. We'll come to pick you up. Ina wanted to tell her not to bother, that she would come on her own, but decided that she'd been too closed up lately, and this wouldn't do. I will. And one more thing. Baba was telling me sometime back that he's really worried. He thinks you're not happy, that something is probably bothering you. You're not talking properly. I know he's just worrying unnecessarily, but I just wanted to know if everything is okay. Damn, she shouldn't have shouted at him like that. But more than that pang of conscience bothering her, it was the fact that Baba wasn't angry at her outburst. He was merely sad and concerned, and that hurt her way more than she was willing to admit. Before she could say anything, Ma continued. Look, you can get irritated all you want when you're with us, but right now, when we can't see you, please don't do that to us. Goodness, since when had she become this cruel, unfeeling, insensitive creature who railed at her parents? Damn, damn, damn. And here was Ma, requesting her to call and keep her informed of her whereabouts, and Baba asking Ma to find out if she was okay, since she wasn't talking to him directly, and not civilly at least. And she was avoiding everyone, cooped up in her shell, rude and insolent, silent and reclusive. She had been so dreadful. They had been infinitely understanding. She was actually worse than the dragon. She realized the dragon was the super boss. The dragon vented his spleen at his subordinates, not at his family. Baba had been so excited about her MBA, so insanely thrilled about her internship, so electrified that she would join an MNC and earn, that she would work in an imposing office building with unceasing dreams. She wanted to apologize. It's just that she didn't want to tell them about anything crappy, but show them only the good things. It's nothing, Ma. I was a little too tired. It was very hot outside today and I couldn't understand what Baba was speaking, asking. Baba doesn't know how to talk tactfully. You know he doesn't realize when and what has to be said. If he wants to do something, he does it. If he wants to say something, he says it. As simple as that. So don't mind him. And try not to tell him that calls waste your time. I know calling is a waste of time, especially for you because you barely get any time for yourself, but try not to say that to his face. I understand, but Baba doesn't. He feels bad. And then they fell. They whom she had successfully held back for so long under so many circumstances fell. The salty wet ones, the ones they call tears. She had been cruel. So cruel and so stupid, a complete imbecile.
My goodness, what diversified personalities we have just witnessed past a good 10 to 15 minutes. A girl where she is very rebellious and a girl who is showcasing her emotions with her mom and dad and is upset about few things. Alright, so moving over here from the book, did you ever get writer's block? And if you do, how do you deal with it?
So I've not been in the kind of situation or profession where I have the luxury to write and think, and say that, yeah, I can write from 10 to 1. My working hours are 10 to 9 and 10 to 10 if it's the AOP season, the budget season, like it is now. So I've not gotten the chance to actually sit peacefully and think. So that went and ended back in college. It's a very difficult time right now. So writer's block, not yet, and I'm glad about that. Probably because I have so many ideas and I don't have the time to write them down. So this is that phase of my life. I'm sure a phase will definitely arrive when I put all these things down and then I have the writer's block. But I think if that comes, everything happens with a certain, everything has a flow. So if you're a writer, you will definitely reach a point where you put all your thoughts, and then I think you constantly need to reinvent and rejuvenate. So the more we read, the more we explore. I think writer's block only happens when you do it So every profession has to be seen in a different way. Writing is a profession which requires you to be more mindful and go deeper. It's not doing things 1, 2, 3, the to-do list of 10 things, I'm going to complete them. It's going deeper, it's landing the feelings, getting the ideas and whatever images you're trying to present to the reader at the right points of time. So if you're able to do that well, if you're not, then probably you're not in the frame of mind, and then it's better to step back, do other things and then get back.
Alright, thank you so much, Aashisha. Now the time has arrived for which we all are eagerly waiting for. It's time for some questions. So students, would you like to ask some questions to the author herself? Alright, we have a question.
Right, so I'm Deva Upadhyay, and I was listening very intently to your excerpts. They were very fascinating. And I just had one question in my mind, as someone who writes a lot and as someone who wishes to get published. How did you get your books published, first of all? And do you think self-publishing is the best way to go for young authors who are still exploring their writings? Or do you think it is better to do it through agents and professional publishing houses?
Well, that's a great question, and I usually hold workshops on this single question, but I will try to concise it in, say, 30 seconds. So, there are many ways to get published. At one point of time, there were only those big 5 publishers, and the writers used to find it hard to get their scripts published. Today, the good news is that we have a democratized model of publishing, where you can publish on Wattpad, and you can publish anywhere and just have the book out. KDP, Kindle Publishing, is also a very handy tool. So what's important when you're young, so I'm going to just talk about it from your perspective, from a school student's perspective or a college student's, is that what do you aim to get out of getting your book published is more important. Are you looking to be a full-time author? Are you looking to just have something on your CV? Are you looking to establish your credentials as a writer slowly? Because then all the approaches differ. If you're just looking to put something on your CV, anything works. You do a self-published thing, or you just do a KDP or anything. The difference, I'll just talk about this. There are pros and cons to everything. Traditional publishing obviously takes a lot of time. It took 4 years for my book to be out. I wrote this in 2017-18, and it came out in 2022. So it takes time. The second thing, but then the traditional publishing offers you something which is set. There's a set theme. You already have people who've been doing it for years, so you don't have to rack your brains on what comes after cover design, what comes after copy editing, what comes after proofreading. Everything is set. In self-publishing, you will have to do everything from scratch, and there might be some moolah involved. So, of course, for students, it's better not to invest heavily on such things. But if you think that amount is not that much, and you would also want to go through the entire process, right from cover design to copy editing, formatting on your own, then go ahead and go on KDP. I would warn against scam publishing houses, which often say, not actual publishing houses, like small ones which say that, give us 10,000 or give us 20K and we'll make you a bestseller in 2 months, 3 months. That's not true. You know that. Nobody can be a bestseller in 2 or 3 months, because logically, if a book comes out in the market, people have to read it. It has to reach people. So after people read it, people review it, then you get word of mouth spreads, you do events, and that's when the book actually gains credentials. So it can't happen overnight, it can't happen in 2-3 months. So it all depends on what you're looking for in your publishing journey. The journey to becoming a writer, as far as I have discovered, is a long one. But I feel it's a rewarding one because, well, I've always wanted to be a writer, so I will not speak against it. So yeah.
Any more questions?
Hi. So you went from being a science student pursuing CS to trying to pursue a career in literature. What was your parents' reaction to that? Were they supportive, critical?
So I have as a person, as a young, even as a student, I was always into multiple things. I don't know if nobody mentioned it, but I'm a Visharad in Kathak, so I actually have a dance degree as well. I can teach dance, although I no longer dance. I've also run a couple of marathons. So what I'm saying is I used to be in a lot of things. So my parents knew that she will not be satisfied if we try to, stop her. But I decided to, go the engineering MBA route because that seemed to me like, I don't know, logical in some weird way. But I was always committed to literature in a way that, I want to write and I can't not write. So it's something which it's a lifestyle, When, for instance, you work out, if someone is into fitness, they work out on a daily basis or 3 times a week. So if you write, you do write. I mean, it's a lifestyle. I don't think it's apart from my journey. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to a certain time in some distant future where I will do this full time, but not right now. But my parents knew that, I think they said that you be logical, don't be broke, be logical and we are okay. So I'm not broke, I'm logical and they are happy with it.
Any more questions?
Alright, so I read your story, the 13-year-old twin, and I was really inspired by the character, the bold personality. So I just wanted to ask that, did you have any message for the youth today while you were writing this story? Because the bold personality, the selflessness and all that really ignited something in me. And what are your thoughts? Have you thought about it?
I think definitely everybody writes a book with an underlying message in mind. It can't be an overt message. But the idea of the book, of the second book, the 13-year-old, was simply that we do not need external factors or anybody else motivating us. Because the guiding view wanted to do something and she did it. And it's as simple as that. If you really, really want something really bad, even if you are if she was in prison for 14 years, she still gained independence and she fought till the end. So it was the message of persistence and sticking to your dreams, staying true to your dreams. And I think the broader message, for this entire piece would be that I think writing and reading are very important and curious pursuits. We should not leave them out, especially in this era where OTTs are reigning supreme. You have to understand why OTTs are reigning supreme. It's because of good writing. There are good script writers working behind the scenes to give you these engaging pieces, which keep you going, which keep you watching. And that's how I think writing and reading will be a part of your life, even if you do not become a writer. Because at the end of the day, even if you go into a job, you will need to communicate what you want in a clear, concise, and effective manner. And that's where writing will help you. So I think all of us should definitely at least have, a lifestyle where you read a bit and at least write a bit. If you don't write, at least read a little. That's, I think, a basic. That's my basic level. So I would suggest all of you should definitely get that one thing right, because if you don't, let me tell you, 10 years later you will anyway go back. Because I know peers at my work, they keep asking me what should we read, how should we better our pronunciations, how should we better our communication, and there are big workshops happening, where people will pay lakhs and lakhs just to bring experts to teach you what communication is all about. It starts here, it begins here. If you do it here, if you do it right here, you will not struggle there. So that's my message, the broader message.
Alright, thank you so much, Aashisha, for joining us today. So I think that everyone is feeling really, they are like joyed or overjoyed and feeling really good here. Yes? Yes or no? Alright, so before you go and before leave, would you like to share some words of encouragement to the budding writers?
I must break the myths. It's difficult, creative pursuits are always difficult. When you want to become a musician, when you want to become a writer, the path is not set. You don't just take an exam and become a writer. You take an exam and you can become a doctor. Difficult, of course. You can take an exam, you can become a CA, you can take an exam and become manager. But a writer has to forge their path themselves. And that's what I think, I somehow feel a writer is an entrepreneur, in today's world especially, because they orchestrate and sort of create everything on their own. So budding authors, aspirant writers, I would say cultivate your interests, read widely, and get be in that community where you will you will know what's what, you will know all the good writings that are coming up, and it's actually fun. When you get into this world, you will find a lot of good things coming up. So keep reading, keep writing, that's what my message would be. And thank you so much, Alcon School, for inviting me, and the Author Awards as well as Times of India for giving me this wonderful, wonderful morning. It's a fresh break from my usual Friday mornings, so I am very, very happy.
Well, thank you so much once again to each and everyone for joining us today and marking this event a successful one. And once again, thank you so much, Alcon International School, for hosting our session today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let's have a thunderous round of applause. Well, once again, thank you so much for attending this session, and to keep check our Facebook page and our Instagram space for our next book reading session and other interesting things. This is your host, Aashisha Gupta, is signing off for the day. Thank you so much.
The students who dived into your book have come out motivated, inspired, carrying a treasure chest filled with knowledge and appreciation for the unsung heroes of India. Thank you so much, ma'am, for writing this book and letting us experience this. You may take your seat, please. Like the North Star that guided sailors through the night, a mentor can help us chart a course to our goals, providing direction, clarity, and inspiration when we need it most. With this, I would like to request our respected principal, Mr. Sanjay Yadav, to kindly address the esteemed gathering.
Very good afternoon, everyone. So I think I will not be doing the justice if I come into the flavor and the experience you have lived through right now, but definitely a lot to reflect on, and maybe we are going to take this opportunity to invite thoughts and reflections from our children, where maybe our teachers along with myself joining you, we will sit and discuss that what has been the learning out of it and how do you foresee. Yes, it's very, very difficult to touch the heart and mind of young people whose attention span varies differently. In spite of that, I could see the moments where the entire audience were captivated to such an extent, and that can only be possible when you are telling something to someone which you have experienced or which you feel that it is more connecting to you, and that is what is the true feeling. So the caption which I read here, I'm sure you can also read it. Your stories can launch a million thoughts. Right now, every mind here has a lot of thoughts generated. I want you to go down, pen down those thoughts somewhere. Because the stimulation which has happened right now, which very rarely happens. We are fortunate that we have such esteemed people and the entire ecosystem has worked together in bringing that stimulation. So my only appeal to everyone right now will be to make use of this opportunity and make the best of this opportunity. And after that, whatever you will jot it down, as I promised, as I mentioned it, I'll request Dr. Ekta and team that we come back here once again and we reflect on these thoughts, and whatever transpires out of that discussion, I'm sure that we'll be, with your permission, we'll be able to share it with you also, because that is what will be their attempt in writing. So I'll request everyone to do that, and let me once again take this opportunity, and of course the journey, every journey of success, this is a moment of celebration, this is a moment of meeting a celebrity who is self-made. This day has been very inspiring for me because the day began with middle stage students when they were talking about celebrating a day where we look at the violence at women and how society has framed, how have we looked at all those things and what kind of practices are needed. After that, there were very young children from nursery and prep who were into their fancy dress exhibiting SDGs and their connection, and we got into a bit of a discussion. I was doing a bit of an exercise with children that what's more essential, food is essential, everybody was shouting yes. I said, so you're sitting here for 45 minutes, did you eat? That made them think, okay, next what could be essential? Water. I said, so 45 minutes, have you drank water? No. And then the children were made to conclude that yes, air is even more essential. So everything which leads to a thought and action is what is ingredient, and very appropriate to this age group for you. The conflict, the relationship, the development, all those things are part of growing up. So don't think that you are the only one who experiences it, who faces it. Even when we were children, I can tell you how many years back, we also had similar experience. We are no different from you. So have faith, have conviction, but yes, reflection is something which will make you come out of something, and it will make you better. The acceptance, the tolerance, which was very rightfully mentioned in the story, was the touching point, and I'm sure that has touched everyone here. And definitely the story of courage. So when we look at women, when we talk about celebration in terms of courage, I would not agree with the statement that yes, the society had a perception that a girl can't get into sales. Rather, I promote and I keep telling my children that what is something which a man or a boy can do which a girl cannot do. So there's nothing of that kind, and with time it's just that it is getting established better and better. So it's a day of celebrating, and we celebrate here our wonderful author and the team which made this possible. We are very, very thankful to you, and I'm sure that the impression which is left in the mind of children will be helping them shape their learning. And this was again made possible because of one of our alumni who is here. So we welcome you after a long time. I guess you were here, so you might be feeling a lot nostalgic about the experiences. This auditorium is known to have shaped the journey of millions of students, and these are wonderful students. I'm sure tomorrow one of them, I would love to see them coming here and discussing their sessions also, and the ecosystem will be there to help you out. God bless you all, and a wonderful day.
Thank you, sir. Your words always inspire and motivate us. As we come to an end of today's author session, we would like to thank everyone for joining us today and delving into the world of words with our esteemed author. Let these stories inspire your own narratives as you continue on your own unique journeys. Remember, in the pages of a book, you can find both solace and adventure. Happy reading.
Introduced, and I think it will be a very good opportunity for all the budding writers, especially those who were talking about how to get published. If you really want to get published, if you really have an idea which you think is crackerjack, or even if it's a little seed, I think the Author Awards has a great category for ages 14 to 18, women or girls who have a manuscript. They can submit it, and the best one, which will be selected, will actually be published as a book. So it's a crowdsourced thing. It's what I started with in Write India, which TOI facilitated. It's one more thing that Author Awards has done to do it for a younger audience between 14 to 18, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity. We must utilize, and I'm looking at, 50, 60 girls who are totally motivated, who have ideas, to just pen it down. As your sir also mentioned in the speech that now is the time for reflection. Pen it down, submit it. This is the right time for you to actually become a writer much before your age. You will save 5-7 years, I guess. So all the very best for the Author Award submissions. Take care, and I'll be happy to connect anytime. Thank you.